Lots of stuff in our lives serves a specific purpose, like libraries. From the truly magnificent with grand staircases and lions flanking the entrance, to the shabby chic little houses put up by your neighbor, we expect libraries to share and hold knowledge and ideas, and books. So it would be upsetting, even ridiculous, if immediately after the grand opening of one of these beautifully designed libraries, it started sinking into the ground because no one accounted for how the weight of the books would affect the building. Well, or so the legend goes. There's no concrete evidence that any actual library experienced this particular sinking feeling, but the lesson remains. Form really should follow function. Architects are always thinking about purpose, from how people will move through a space to how the building will be effectively heated and cooled. Similarly, writers can't just dive wildly into a writing task without taking a minute to think about what the writing is for and what purpose they have for writing. In the same way that a Gothic museum would be all wrong for a high tech battery factory, the kind of writing choices you make will be shaped by your purpose. Hi, I'm Dr. Emily Zarka, and this is Study Hall Rhetoric and Composition. You can think about writing like a Swiss Army knife. It's essential in a variety of situations, and just when you think you're only going to need a screwdriver, you realize there's a built-in flashlight and a pair of scissors too. Basically, writing can be super useful, but we still need to adjust the kind of writing we do for the purpose we've got in mind. Many of us start a writing project only to realize halfway through that we misunderstood directions or we picked a kind of writing that wasn't ever going to accomplish our goals as well as we'd like. So we can think of figuring out our goal or purpose for writing as step one of how to start writing. For instance, the purpose of our writing might be writing as communication, which means, well, writing in order to pass along information or share something with others. And that might sound straightforward, but we have to think about what's really happening when someone reads what we've written. A lot of us think that writing is like sending money with an app. We type in $10, hit send, and exactly $10 shows up in someone else's account. Only with writing, it's more like playing that old game telephone. The ideas start in one mind and end up in another one. And when they arrive, they can look quite different. Like writing an email or Slack messages is often a place where we use writing as communication. And who hasn't spent time carefully crafting a message to be really straightforward, only to have someone ask for more clarification and details? The mind on the other end of our writing is doing their own work with what they read. Even if you say you just wanted to communicate this update to someone, they'll still bring their own interpretation to the experience. Like, imagine if you were working in the IT department and someone texts your help hotline. All they write is, "This is broken." No hello, no context, no nothing. Sure, from their point of view, they're looking at the thing that's broken and are asking for help. But to you, the communication doesn't give you a useful way to think about the problem. Rather, all the person is really communicating is that they're so frustrated they can't take the time to be clear, and they're not thinking clearly enough to realize they need to tell you what the problem is, not just that there is a problem. So when we're using writing as communication, lots of other elements are needed to truly achieve communication, and even then, it's not that someone fully transmits their ideas into another mind. For the IT message, the texter really needs to clarify what this is. They also need to share why they think it's broken and quite a few other key details. Effective writing as communication occurs when both sides have exchanged enough information to move forward with the information each party now has. But it won't ever be exactly the same message in each mind. We have to be careful about assuming that everyone shares the same background, influences, and language as us, because that's when we can get a little less precise and less intentional with our communication. So, if writing to communicate something is our main purpose, our job might be harder than we think. But identifying it as our purpose lets us know we need to work to take our audiences and what they need to know into account, rather than just writing whatever happens to occur to us. But many times we don't just want to have people absorb information from our writing. Like when we're writing to persuade, we're hoping our writing causes enough change to produce an effect in the real world. Of course, writing isn't mind control, but our cultures decide that certain words, phrases, and formats are deeply powerful. Honestly, there are some pretty magical uses of writing as action and persuasion in our society, even if there are no magic wands involved. Like an incarcerated person can sometimes write a letter to request that a political leader pardon them. If written persuasively enough, that letter can literally set you free. Or think about how job applications and recommendation letters impact the real world, shifting work opportunities and connections between people. Knowing how to write to inspire people to act is both immensely practical and pretty powerful. And when we identify writing to persuade as our purpose, we can focus on what makes the biggest impact and revise away anything that isn't convincing the audience of our argument. So, words are clearly pretty powerful, and that includes the words that we only write for ourselves. In fact, writing as reflection is another role that writing can play in our lives, where we try to work through different things. Reflection is one way that we can see thoughts and experiences again and draw more meaning or use out of them. There's a reason why many of the world's religions involve reading and writing about sacred texts over and over, since there's always something new to think about and learn from them. Now, this writing won't always go out into the world for someone else to read or verify. The most common example of reflection is a journal, but in modern life, many people treat social media as a form of reflective writing too. Some people post online in order to process difficult things they're going through and try to find meaning and purpose when something hard is happening to them. Some might also want to post good things that are happening as a way to recall positive memories in the future. When we write something down, we look at it again as we write, drawing insight. But we also create an artifact to find, like a journal that we find at the bottom of a box of childhood things. When we find it, we reflect again and are embarrassed by what we said. So, if we identify our purpose as writing to reflect, we're empowered to make our writing more personally impactful, with less of a focus on an outside reader's needs. Even if something like a journal is part of an assignment, we're our own primary audience, so we can tune to what will help us think something through. But reflective writing isn't the only kind of writing where the author is the main audience. Like when we see a brilliant novel sitting on the bookstore shelf, that isn't all the writing that was done to create that final product. In the author's dusty basement or computer hard drive, we'd likely find piles of free writing that help them work out the basic plot, and maybe 2 or 3 full drafts that each contributed pieces to the final. There would also be proofs from the novel's editor, full of comments and revisions. These are all examples of process writing, which is made of all the elements of a writing project that help create it but aren't the final draft, including invention or pre-writing tasks, early drafts, revised drafts, and anything else you use to compose your work. It's very difficult to achieve all the goals of a complex writing task without these process writing elements. So keep in mind that part of the role of process writing is simply to help us get to the product we're trying to make. The process documents we create feed into written documents that later go on to persuade or communicate or reflect. And acknowledging when we're doing process writing can help free up some of our inhibitions or relieve some of the pressure we might be feeling about putting perfect words on the page. So, whether we're writing to communicate, writing to persuade, writing as reflection, process writing, or one of the many other specific types of writing, identifying our purpose helps us get started writing with our audience in mind and make choices about what we prioritize in our work. But how? Let's look at an example. Say Paul works at a local nonprofit, running tutoring services for young children and also helping with some of the administration. In his first couple of years, he's surprised by how often he has to adjust his writing to his purposes. For instance, he spends a lot of time editing emails he sends to the parents of the children the nonprofit serves. He wants to write to communicate in a way that really acknowledges his audience, so he has to think about where they're probably reading those emails and what matters to them. He realizes that the most important information needs to be clear to busy people so that they don't have to stop diapering the baby or cooking dinner for very long to get the key information. Realizing that part of writing to communicate here will mean writing for very fast reading, he deliberately bolds key deadlines and lists, making the email scannable and clear. But he pivots his purpose when he submits grant applications, where his purpose is more about writing to persuade, namely to encourage the readers to give his program thousands of dollars. He adds a lot more details in long paragraphs, since he thinks his readers will have a more critical eye and will read very thoroughly while comparing his applications to others. Looking at the instructions for each grant, they encourage him to make his program stand out. With this purpose in mind, Paul tries to give a really clear rationale for his project and make his writing inspiring to convey the emotional impact of getting tutoring for these children. Ultimately, Paul finds success in this role because he's not writing everything using the exact same playbook. He attunes his work to the purpose he wants to achieve. It helps him write more efficiently, too, giving him more time to hang out with those great kids. When we know that writing can have a ton of different roles, some personal and some outward facing, it's easier to figure out what skills we need to build to achieve our goals. Whether the kind of writing we're doing has a lot of intricate expectations or is very personal and for our eyes only, answering "what's this writing for" with confidence and proceeding based on your answer frees you from getting stuck wondering how to get started. Writing doesn't have to be an anxiety producing activity if we know where to start, and starting with our purpose in mind can help us write better final products too. Just like we make sure libraries can actually hold books, we'll bring the right tools and materials to our writing so that we have the best chance of success. What's great is that by continuing to watch videos in our series, you can learn tons of new tools that can make your writing into a beautiful and functional building where your meaning and goals can live. Or something like that anyway. Thanks for watching Study Hall Rhetoric and Composition, which is part of the Study Hall Project, a partnership between ASU and Crash Course. If you liked this video and want to keep learning with us, be sure to subscribe. You can learn more about Study Hall and the videos produced by Crash Course and ASU in the links in the description. See you next time.